Welcome to the North Carolina Field Ministers Podcast, Changing Life, Changing Culture. This podcast offers a forum for field ministers in North Carolina to discuss their lives, their ministry, their impact on incarcerated neighbors, their viewpoints on issues that affect the currently and formerly incarcerated, and their perspectives on a variety of topics. Please note, the podcast does not officially represent the North Carolina Field Minister Program.
Good morning. I was asked, as a prisoner, what do you do to deal with loneliness? And how do you maintain outside relationships with friends and family? Initially, I thought this was a simple question. What prisoner doesn't experience loneliness? We all have our coping mechanisms. But after analyzing our methods, I come to realize that loneliness during incarceration is no different than loneliness in society. While watching a Veritasium video entitled What the Ultimate Study on Happiness Reveals, I come to better understand loneliness. Robert Waldinger, the director of Harvard Studies of Adult Development, defines loneliness as the subjective experience of being less connected to people than you want to be. This definition explains how it's possible to feel loneliness while being inside a room full of people. In prison, it's a struggle to find alone time and lower custody levels. Maximum security prisons house their population inside of dorms full of individual rooms or cells, depending on what you want to call them. Medium or minimum custody prisons house their population in dormitories resembling barracks with bunk beds spaced about 3 to 4 feet apart. Privacy is a luxury at times, but even inside these cramped dorms, it's still easy to feel isolated and alone. The feeling of isolation comes from a lack of connectedness. The lack of connectedness compounds with the stress of prisoner sentences. When they are initially incarcerated, it leads to maladjustment. Well, I'm no expert to say this is a fact, but throughout my sentence, I witnessed the commonality of prisoners being involved in infractions more so early in their sentences than later. When it comes to adjusting and dealing with loneliness, my first response was working out. Exercise is a major stress reliever. Also, it takes your mind off whatever is bothering you in that moment. Besides, working out and prisons are sort of synonymous, right? Walking out to the recreation yard, I noticed something though. Majority of the people are working out in groups. I reflect on the idea of when I work out, it's always best with a partner. Having someone to work out with seems more motivating. These workout sessions is one method of bonding. Throughout the workouts, in addition to motivating each other through reps, we have conversations that span from small talk like sports up to major topics like how to be a better father while in prison or how to be a better husband. Friendships are formed on the weight pile. But much like the weight pile, there are card games like spades, poker, big whist. There are board games like chess, checkers, and Risk. Even role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. People occupy themselves with these recreational activities to 1, kill time and distract ourselves, and 2, to connect with other people. These distractions and connections doesn't always solve our issues with loneliness though, because in the back of our minds, we still recognize that life is still going on beyond these prison walls. We have spouses, children, parents, siblings. Some even had businesses and properties that needed to be maintained. So those things are ever present in our psyche. The problem with the connections that we form is they're not as meaningful. We recognize that when we make bonds of friendship within these prison walls, most of the time it's momentary. At any time, the person that we bonded with could be moved to another dormitory, could be transferred to another prison, or could even be released, and we are subject to never hearing from them again. Our most meaningful connections are with our loved ones that are beyond these prison walls. These are the relationships that matter most to us, and in a way allows us to maintain a sense of identity. Also, in our darkest days, these connections are our biggest motivations not to give up. Staying connected has its complications, though. The first method of staying connected is one of the oldest means: writing a letter. For the prisoner, it is as simple as writing a letter, purchasing a stamp, which seems to get more and more expensive each year, and placing the letter in the mail. The complication arises with receiving the mail. Over the last few years, prisons across the country have been reducing prisoner access to physical mail and has transitioned to digital means. In North Carolina, prisons use a service called Text Behind. Using Text Behind, as long as the sender has the prisoner's prison ID number, they can mail the letter to Text Behind in St. X, Maryland, and the prisoner will receive a digital copy within a few weeks, or the next day if they pay for speedy delivery. The letter is going to be electronic, and it's going to be on their tablets. The next method of connection is via telephone services. In North Carolina, all phone calls 10 cents a minute, and at most facilities, prisoners have access to the phone between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. However, an inmate phone privileges can be revoked for receiving infractions or for participating in gang activities. And a newer method of connection is through emails. In 2020, North Carolina began using tablets provided by the GTL, or Global Tel Link. For $10, prisoners have access to 500 minutes of service. One feature of the service is emails to get it out. Prisoners can send an email request to friends and family, or friends and family can just go onto the website and initiate the process. But the final method relies more so on prisoners' family and friends. This is visitation. In North Carolina, in order to visit any prisoner, the person must be an approved visitor. This happens by procuring a visitation application and sending a completed form along with a copy of their ID or birth certificate for minors to the prison that the prisoner is constantly incarcerated in. Once approved, visitation appointments can be scheduled at least 72 hours before the visit. In North Carolina, the visits are 2 hours long. However, if the visitor travels over a certain distance, they can request a 4-hour special visit. I say that visits are more so on family and friends because it's on them to be present for the visit. One of the most depressing sights that I've seen is the look of dejection when visitors miss their appointments for whatever reason. Each of these methods of connections are lifelines for prisoners. We cherish them and hold on to them. Sadly, they also create a financial burden for some. In North Carolina, prisoners can earn a wage, which is not livable. For being on a job assignment, most prisoners can earn between 40 cents and $1.25 per day of work. I'll say that again. Prisoners can earn between 40 cents and $1.25 per day of work. I've met prisoners who will work for months just to save $50 to send the money on home for their child's Christmas gift. And that's not to mention the $5 money order fee that the prison charges. So many times, the burden of paying $10 for 500 minutes of service to send and receive email falls on our friends and family, or the 10 cents a minute on phone calls, even the 73 cents postage fee for letters. These things rely on support of family. So on behalf of all prisoners, for those of you that support an incarcerated individual in any way, we truly do appreciate all that you do. But back to the answer to the original question, I deal with loneliness by constantly cultivating the relationships that I have with my family and friends beyond these prison walls. I'm blessed to have a huge circle of support, and I maintain communication in every way possible. I can also say that I've built many meaningful relationships since I've been incarcerated. Those that I consider to be friends and family are people that I bonded with before coming to prison and since I've been in prison. So any of you that are dealing with loneliness yourself, I implore you to find ways to connect with others. Build a circle of support. Build a circle of friends. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.
You have been listening to the Prison Pod, a podcast not just for those in prison but for anyone who has been affected by incarceration. Ms. Valerie would love for you to write to her with your questions, comments, and show ideas. The address is Prison Pod, Post Office Box 294, Orono, Maine. 04473.